When it comes to improvement, there's a lot of things you need to consider. In this video, I'll be going over some common mistakes, things to incorporate, great resources, and most importantly, stay with me now, how to improve your mentality. I promise you all of these things are extremely important, and if you seriously want to improve, watch this video and actually implement these things. Come back to this video if you have any questions, and don't be afraid to ask questions in the comments. I promise you I will respond. If I don't know or if I don't have an answer, I'll be honest and I'll admit that I don't know. Mentality has to be fundamental as the foundation for every bit of improvement. As the foundation, it has to be laid out first. This applies to fighting games and plat fighters alike. Fighting games are not about frame data and being optimal. Fighting games are about adaptations and conditioning. This is the foundation for a good mindset. This isn't to say that optimization and frame data are useless or that they can't take you far, but like a house, if the foundation is weak, it'll inevitably come crashing down. So again, really listen to what I'm saying. Fighting games are not about frame data and being optimal. Fighting games are about adaptations and conditioning. There is no way to play perfectly. It simply isn't plausible. Let me show you what that really means.
Mewtwo King is good at finding like the best options for a situation, which can lock him into a bad mindset of, best option all the time. Mango knows Mewtwo King wants the best option, so he says, you just do stupid things that shouldn't work. Basically, you approach him in weird. What he says is like, you do weird stuff. He doesn't know what to do.
He's a robot. He's really good. His combos are amazing, but once you get in his head, it's downhill for Mewtwo King.
So much of Mewtwo King's identity came from being a god at the game. So on comes Mango, his kryptonite, and when Mango beat him in those awful, horrendous, embarrassing Jigglypuff dittos, I think it changed him forever. At least in a Smash way, if not in a real world kind of way. Mewtwo King's not able to beat Mango anymore. It's like something broke in his brain, and he forever has a mind block where he can't beat him, and it's a shame. And you see just the frustration in losing to him.
If you don't know anything about Melee, let me tell you this. In Melee, there was a point of time where there were only 5 players who it seemed that if you weren't one of the other 4, you couldn't beat them. They were referred to as the 5 gods of Melee, and only a god could beat another god. In this clip, we have one of the gods, PPMD, talking about 2 of the other gods, Mango and Mewtwo King. Mango's legacy is so huge that it goes far beyond the reach of even just Smash. In fact, even now, he's one of the top Rivals 2 players.
That's game 3 going to Mango.
So he must be very knowledgeable about how the game works. It's ins and outs, right?
Falco's is technically easier to do because he has a longer jump squat.
Why does jump squat matter?
So, what?
So wait,
it doesn't
what,
really matter that much.
So you're saying because Falco's has a smaller
longer one?
Longer.
No.
Longer meaning more...
More time he spends in this animation.
Okay, so when Cody's like, I can't play this character because it has a different jump squat, that's what he means?
Yes, yeah.
But is it that big of a difference?
It is.
Or if I just play this game too long, it all feels the same?
Jump squat. Something that affects jump, cancel, up smash, and wave dashes. And yet, Mango doesn't even really understand what it is as a concept. And this isn't out of context or something I pulled 20 years ago. In fact, at the time of writing this script, the video is only about 11 months old. And he's not the only one. I've met tons of top players who are just like this. That being said, there's plenty of players who do study frame data and optimization. Pipsqueak, KJH, and M2K are great examples. What I'm trying to show you is that it's possible to be considered one of the greatest to ever do it without having to obsess in studying things like frame data. Just keep in mind that optimizing things is more like the icing on the cake rather than the cake itself. I'll talk about this more later in the video, but it's important we lay the groundwork for what's to come. Frame data and playing optimally have their value, but fighting games are about adaptations and conditioning. I want to cover misconceptions about learning. Most of the learning problems I see come from people's lack of challenging the notions of what they're learning. I just want to learn, what angle do I DI here? Okay, so you have the options that you can DI in, you can DI out, or not DI at all. As far as the correct option here, there isn't one. Fighting games are more than anything rock, paper, scissors. And just like rock, paper, scissors, there is no correct option. If you throw out rock, they could choose paper. If you choose scissors, they'll pick rock. To break this down, let's ask a question. Is it possible to play perfectly? Luckily, a group of content creators known as Beefy Smash Dudes did a really great job answering this question.
Everyone knows how safe she can be if she spaces her forward air optimally. But is that enough? Meta Knight starts approaching her, so she short hops back to space a forward air and stay as safe as possible. But at the same time Sheik starts her jump, Meta Knight starts dashing forward. He power shields Sheik's forward air and jabs her. Alright, she can still react to the dash at least, so let's say she quickly lands again and grabs to punish his shield. Oh, but wait, this time Meta Knight decided to go for a dash attack instead. Was that a read or simply luck? Who knows, the only important thing is that it worked. Okay, forget it, let's just jump away and get out of there as soon as we see Meta Knight dash in. Ah, damn it, okay, jump and air dodge, that has to be safe. Ooh, finally. Now let's just land somewhere. Ooh, okay, not there. Maybe like that. That's not safe. My point is, no matter what you do, there is always a counterplay to it. So what can you do? Well, not try playing perfect, because it doesn't work. The worst player in the world can land a hit on the best player if he just randomly throws out the correct counterplay. But the difference between the two is that a good player gets the correct counterplay more often than a bad one.
When you get the chance, please go watch this video in its entirety. But the point is that there is no way to play perfectly, and it's okay to make the incorrect option. The correct option only exists when you know what your opponent is going to do, but you won't know what that is until they've already done it. This is where patterns and habits come into play.
Let's say your opponent dashes towards you. Will they attack, will they grab, or will they do something completely different? You can't know it, you can't react to it, and you can't cover all options or be safe from all options as we saw earlier. You have to go with your gut and just do what it tells you. If you think they will attack, shield. If you think they will shield, grab, without doubt or hesitation. Will they roll back? Run after them. Don't try to cover all options. Pick one or a few that you can definitely cover, and if you choose the wrong option, that's fine. There's no harm in being wrong a few times. Take your mistakes as learning opportunities for the next situation. Every time you get hit, you store in your head what your opponent hit you with, and slowly you will start being able to adapt and punish them. Next time they run at you, your brain will tell you, he grabbed me 3 times now, not again.
Again, this video has a lot to offer, so please go watch it in its entirety. There will be a link to it in the description. There is a time to learn what comes next, and often when I bring this up, people feel attacked. I even had someone call it gatekeeping. The two examples are learning about frame data and watching top players. Learning from both of these are incredibly helpful tools, but it's important to wait till the right time when you're ready to learn from them. To better illustrate this point,
I've read some books on magic. I mean, Crowley, wow. But Jesus, he sure comes across as somber sometimes.
Yes, he does.
Lord.
And it takes forever to sort of crack open what he's even saying. You know, you've got to learn so much other stuff before you can even begin to understand what the hell he's actually talking about a lot of times, because so much of it is written in a kind of code.
What Damien Eccles is saying here has so much value. You can't just grab a book by Aleister Crowley and expect with no prior knowledge at all to understand what the hell he's even talking about. For a lot of us, Rivals 2 isn't our first fighting game or plat fighter. We often come with experience, but the truth is you should wait till you're at a place of understanding before you try to utilize these tools. Trying to understand frame data right away would be like giving an 8-year-old a quantum physics book. To try to copy Cake Assault is like walking into a gym for the first time and you're trying to max out the squat machine. There are layers to this, and just because you can squat 100 pounds doesn't mean you should try to max out the machine. The reason you can't utilize these tools yet is because even though you should be able to act out of bear on frame 8, you can't. Just because you saw Ron Gunshoe use counter doesn't mean that you should. Just because you saw Toothbrush trade with MSB doesn't mean that it's a good idea. In fact, let me show you how differently the mind of a top player often works.
Played 2 sets of grands at my local against Toothbrush yesterday, who's this insane runner that's been fucking up every crag, but I figured out pretty early for set 1 that I could get him with these pillar jab cheeses, and then he counter-adapted, and you can see that he's been just trading with my frame 6 jab over and over. It just keeps happening, but I keep doing it. I keep pillaring even though I know he's going to mash and trade. And that's because jab is now my only option that comes at frame 6.
End stage control. A clever recovery from MSB. The parry! No way!
Toothbrush felt safe doing this option over and over again, and in the moment when MSB was ready, he whipped out something he hadn't the entire set. It's what closed out the set. There are layers to learning this stuff. First you pillar, and then you start winning the engagement, and then they start trading with you. Then you start parrying, then they start waiting out the parry, and then you start mixing up when you're going to parry, so on and so on. This is why there is no such thing as the correct option. You can't just watch pro players and expect to magically become one. You have to be honest and admit to yourself that you don't know what ZB is doing. Blindly trying to follow what he's doing without actually understanding why he's doing it is going to hurt you rather than help you grow. Back to frame data. Remember that a frame is a 60th of a second. That is really fast to expect somebody to be frame perfect. And Awesome Sauce has a great example to show you just how fast one frame really is.
For perspective, one frame in Melee, which runs at 60 frames per second, is 16 milliseconds. To really drive this point home, this counter is currently displaying a number from 1 to 60, representing the individual frames in this 60 FPS video. You have, at most, the time it takes for this counter to increase by 1 to complete this motion and not have it fuck up. I say at most because the odds of you beginning this motion right at the beginning of a frame are very low, so on average you'll have about half the time it takes for this counter to increase by 1. All to do this. I'm dead fucking serious.
So please don't beat yourself up for not being frame perfect all the time. When talking about being perfect, making mistakes, and getting better, we get on to something very important. It's okay to not be perfect. I know that you think you're the main character, but often people and some forms of media give us the wrong idea of what that really means. To train hard doesn't mean to go to the gym 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's important to rest. It's how we grow.
Congratulations, boys. You've survived this year. Through the ups and downs, you kept going. That's something to be proud of. Now, it's time to take a step back. Relax, recharge, and recover. You've got 12 brand new chapters ahead, 365 new chances to grow, to learn, and to become stronger. But none of that matters if you don't take care of the person who's walking into them. Resting isn't a weakness, it's preparing for what's to come. So take a deep breath, let go of the weight of this year, and get ready to take on the next. Remember, the best is still ahead of you. So step into the new year with a clear mind and a strong heart, because the next chapter of your story is yours to write.
Just like resting isn't a weakness, your mistakes don't make you weak. If you fall and you stay down, that's what makes you weak. You have to get back up and keep trying. It's okay to not be frame perfect. We watch pros play and we see that they still miss L cancels, which is why it's important to not focus on frame data so much. Not to mention the fact with patches, stuff is going to change in Rivals. No sense in devoting hours upon hours of time practicing something that won't even be there in a month. Focus on learning fundamentals that won't change over time. We see a lot of the top level players from Rivals 2 come from Rivals 1, but a lot of them come from other games with little to no experience at all of Rivals 1. PM players, Ultimate players, Melee players. This is because their skills are not dependent on a few frames here or there. 99% of the time, their overall concepts and decision making is what's getting them these wins. Speaking of making the right decisions, let's talk about autopilot. Autopiloting is kind of when you stop thinking. Sure, you're still playing the game and maybe even winning, but you're no longer focused on actively making your decisions. Autopiloting allows for things like mix-ups and upsets, not to mention you don't really grow from playing that way, which is still completely fine. Sometimes it's nice to turn off your brain and just play the game we all love. As far as growing and improving, I'm not saying you can't turn your brain off a little, but it's important to be aware of when you're autopiloting and how it can affect your gameplay. Practice mindfulness and being present in the moment. These will really help you get the most out of your time that you're putting in. In regards to time, we have another thing that's very important to cover. Time and results are not the same thing. Simply spending a lot of time on something doesn't guarantee positive outcomes. That's why staying present in the moment to better avoid autopilot is so important. Often there becomes an obsession with the outcome, which is why we have to learn to love the process. Video games aren't supposed to be just a competitive outlet. What most people love about competitive video games is that winning and losing are only pieces of the puzzle. Making memories, having fun, and loving the process of improvement are part of the puzzle too. If you ignore these parts, you're gonna have one ugly ass puzzle. So what does loving the process really mean? It means looking back on a video of you playing when you first started versus where you are now. Seeing how much faster you are, making better decisions, and seeing more of the puzzle. Learn to love, appreciate the game, and your personal growth with the game, rather than just wishing you were the best player from the moment you went to your first tournament. That process drives us to discuss the grind, and with that comes one of the biggest misconceptions. Do not just play one character. Your character levels should be spread out and look kind of like this. They get into the mindset that they need to grind or only touch one fraction of the roster. Knowledge should never be limited to coming from only one perspective. I'm not saying to play everyone as much as your main, but never playing other characters will limit your perspective. Getting into a bad habit of seeing your weaknesses magnified and glorifying other characters' strengths. This also affects tournaments. In a best of 3, you don't have a lot of time to try to figure out your opponent's thought process, patterns, or even general skill level. But with the frame of reference of having a few real hours on a character, you can have a better idea of what's going on in your opponent's head. Lastly, locals. Now, if you are one of those people with no form of transportation, spare income of any kind, etc., then of course there's not much you can do. Otherwise, if you can, go to your locals. There are so many reasons to go and support your locals. From making lifelong friends and memories, to supporting your scene and helping it grow, and of course, to help yourself improve as a player. Many locals have things like streams where you can get a chance to play on stream and then have a VOD later to review. Not to mention how we play in person at a tournament that you paid to compete in is way different than how you play in the comfort of your own home. Tournament nerves are a huge thing, and the last thing you want to do is never show up to anything, finally go to a major, play on a stage in front of hundreds of people, and perform worse than you ever have. If you want to improve, you really need to try to go to your locals. Even if it's kind of far, even if there's barely any signups, even if you are only a silver player, you should go. If there are no locals near you, take action. Start small and just have 1 or 2 people meet up somewhere, and from there it can grow. Go to your locals. Now that we've talked about how to improve, I want to give you some resources for more improvement. Again, if you have questions or if there's something I need to articulate more, I'll work to make more videos that are center focused on one thing with more in-depth discussion. In the meantime, please check out things like Core A Gaming. They have been making videos for over 9+ years, and they are fantastic. Their playlist of videos called Core A Analysis Fighting Games Video Essay has a collection of amazing videos. Personally, I love their video on why fighting games are worth it. If you recognize this clip, then you might be interested to know that this guy wrote a book on the will to keep winning. It's a great book, one of my personal favorites, and I highly recommend giving it a read through. Be sure to check out the Art of Rivals channel. These videos are made by a guy called Isa, who's been making Smash Guide videos for over 8 years, who helped me when I first started, and even now, he's the guy who's doing the in-game tutorial videos for Rivals of Aether 2 officially. The Art of Rivals channel and Iza are going to be the cornerstones of improvement for this game, so don't waste these resources. My Smash Corner also made a video on mind games that's really helpful, and of course be sure to watch that video by Beefy Smash Dudes. In the description of this video, I'll have links to all of those resources. I also want to say thank you for all the B-roll footage in this video. So there will be a list in the description with where I got all this background footage. Lastly, on the screen, you'll see a list of tags of people who helped me make this video. It wouldn't be possible without them, so thank you to all these people who helped. Thank you all so much for watching, I greatly appreciate it. And until next time, it's been Raven, not your rival, but your friend.